Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to episode one of Unhurried, where we explore what it means to unhurry our lives and embrace the pace of Jesus. If this is your first time on this platform, my name is Sean Dreer. I'm your host. I'm grateful to be here. Looking forward to a really good conversation. If you're watching us live, and by live, I mean if you're watching us on Wednesday morning, I want you to let us know how you're doing in the chat. Again, if you're watching us live, and by live, I mean if you're watching us on Wednesday morning, let us know how you're doing in the chat. I see so many of you already in the chat. What up? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Hopefully, your Wednesday is off to a productive start. Joining me for episode one, conversation one, is not a stranger to this platform, but it is the first person I wanted to invite for episode one. None other than, depending on how you know her, Errica, Elder Errica. Want to welcome you to Unhurried. What's going on?
Good morning. Good morning. As always, thank you. Good morning to the family. How's everybody?
Folks is in the chat. They say they're doing good. Good morning, family. Good morning. Good morning. I know people are out and about and getting ready and all the good stuff. All right. Good morning. Doing good. Doing good. All right. Glad to see it. So we are launching this new podcast series called Unhurried. It is an evolution. So if you've been rocking with us for a while, you know every first Wednesday we've been on what we call Sabbath Wednesday. We've been refraining from our evening gathering just to create some margin, some space in our church schedule because church can get very busy. Church can get very hurried. And so we want to do our best to model what it looks like to embrace a slower pace because we believe that God can do so much with so little. And so we've been on that for a while, but since our approach to church, our ecclesiology is missional, we believe that there are seasons where you need to reinvent. We just believe that there are seasons where you need to reinvent. And so because of that, I've really been thinking through, okay, what does it look like? What's the next natural evolution of this concept of Sabbath? So when I first introduced it to our church, a lot of people just didn't know what it was. You know, we talk about thou should not kill and thou should not steal, but remembering the Sabbath and keeping it holy it's gotten lost, partly because there's arguments about when the Sabbath is. People are like, oh, it's Saturday, it's all this other unnecessary stuff. We miss the principle that there needs to be time and margin in our schedule for rest. And so after being on that for a while, I'm like, okay, so the next natural evolution would then be to unhurry our lives. Because if we don't unhurry our lives, then even the principle of Sabbath won't help us. Because we'll work at such a frantic pace 6 days a week. And then on the seventh day, we're looking for it to just recharge everything. And it just doesn't work like that. And so really sitting and thinking about what does it look like to unhurry our lives so that we can embrace the pace of Jesus. Because without embracing his pace, you can't work his words. You can't do what Jesus did if you're not willing to live your life the way Jesus lived his life. And here's what really shook me as I've been really studying Jesus and stuff for the last decade plus. He had a busy schedule, but an unhurried soul. He had a busy schedule. So I'm type A. People who know me know I like to get stuff done. I wake up, I'm ready to go. So I don't need some passive Jesus who just sitting and praying all day. I need somebody who getting stuff done. But Jesus had this unique balance where he had a busy schedule. There's no objective reading of the gospel that would lead us to any other conclusion. He had a busy schedule. But the schedule, busyness is the condition of the schedule. Hurry is the condition of the soul. And Jesus had a busy schedule, but he had an unhurried soul. So that's what this is about. It's a podcast series. We're going to be in this for probably the rest of the year. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be really, really good. I wanted to invite Elder Errica to join me for this first episode because at Kingdom South, it's Women's Month. So we map our preaching, our programming, and our practices in May around ministry to women. And so even this podcast wanted to make sure that we can minister to women. So we're going to have a conversation about what it looks like to be a Black woman of faith navigating the waters of corporate leadership. So, what most people don't know, I know there are a lot of people who've met you in the religious space, there's some people who've met you in the coaching space, but what a lot of people may or may not know is that by trade, you are like your day job is you are an operations leader. So let's start here. Describe your current role and what it entails. So, like, what do you do right now?
Okay, so I am a senior operations manager for a Fortune 50 corporation. I have 7 direct reports, 16 leads, and over 300 team members. And I run a complete, I'm going to use the term shift, over a 2 million square foot facility in supply chain and distribution. And I've been doing that now for 16 years in that current space, but I've been in operations management for over 25 years.
Wow. All right. If you didn't know that in the chat, I just want you to put wow. If you didn't know that, if you had no clue, because I know again, some of us met you in the religious space, so there are people who they don't have they have no idea what you do for a living. So you've been in this current role for
16 years.
16 years, operations leadership for 25 years. So I want you to take
Mhm.
us back a little bit. Let's go back to early days. How did you get into operations? So was this
Oh,
like
wow.
the plan, or was there
No.
some moment that happened that kind of sent you down this path?
No, it was not the plan. So let me just kind of take you back. So, when you're a teenager and you just want to work and make money. So my first job was with TJ Maxx, right, at 16. So I became a lead and then worked my way through college. So my first management role as far as leading people, I was 18 years old. For those of you who are in the retail and love shopping and remember a store called The Avenue, it was before Lane Bryant was a thing. I was a store manager for The Avenue. I was an assistant store manager, 18 years old, while I was in college. And I carried it as just a means to an end just to make money. So it wasn't until, and I had gotten out of retail for a little bit. I was married at the time, mom, whole nine. So I had to go back into the retail space due to some unfortunate circumstances. And it was in that space where that was something I knew I could rely on because I had experience in it. So I had, if anybody remembers Sears, and if you've been here in Columbia and you
Listen,
probably saw me in Sears at some point. I was there for 10 years. I met everybody. Everybody
Sears
that
is
came to Sears, I was there.
Sears is old
So
school.
Sears is old school. So I got into the operations side because I had been an assistant manager there for years. Her name was Monica. She had been with the company already for 40 years.
Mm,
And she decided to retire. So that was some big shoes to fill. And I got her job when she retired. So my
wow.
last 5 years was as an operations manager on the customer facing side of retail. And that's where I learned about human resources, loss prevention, engineering and facilities. I had to deep dive into that space, which translated over to supply chain and distribution, which is where I'm currently now working for, as most people call it, Target. I work for Target. So I've been there now, and I started there as an operations manager. Now I'm a senior operations manager. So I've been doing that now for 16 years.
Yeah, it's somebody in chat talking about come on TJ Maxx. Listen, it's the throwbacks for me. So this first job, you mentioned this first leadership role. So getting into that first leadership assignment, what did that job entail? And then I want you to maybe share one or two lessons that you had to learn the hard way early on. So,
Mhm.
you start this operations journey and it's like, all right, I'm in it. Boom, I done got promoted. You see your check increase. So what did that first leadership role entail? And then what were one or two leadership lessons that you just had to learn the hard way?
So one of the first things is leading people, you can't be the type of leader that cannot do what you're asking other people to do.
Mm,
You have to lead by example. That's number one. And I would never ask anyone to do something that I could not even do myself or understand it. Because in a leadership role, you're also teaching.
Mm-hmm.
You're leading by example. You're also teaching. You have to be able to answer questions. And you have to be okay with saying, I don't know, but let's discover the answer together. So there's a level of humility that you have to have. The
Yes.
thing that I learned the hardest is when it comes to leadership, friendship has a place.
Oh my.
And people will, there are sometimes you may have to fire your friends.
Oh my.
And people who say they're your friends will also steal from you. And you have to send them to jail. So, it's boundaries that have to be set in leadership. And the hardest part is when you have friends that work with you or for you. You have to be able to separate the two so it doesn't put you at risk for your job, you're at risk for your own credibility, and to protect the friendship, especially if it's a valuable friendship, right? And that people are going to test you along the way.
Yes. 100%. And I'm so glad you mentioned that because people don't talk enough about that, especially when there's like an internal promotion. It's one
Correct.
thing to get somebody from the outside, but internal promotions are a bit different because you go from being peers
Mm-hmm.
to being responsible for the same team that you used to be on. And so the
Correct.
dynamics of the relationship have to change, and higher ups don't help you do that. They're
They
like,
do
this is
not.
your job now, and you just get thrown in there. You mentioned this resistance that you end up encountering just in the journey of being promoted. So over the course of your leadership journey, when would you say was the first time you encountered resistance that you knew was related to you being a black woman?
Oh wow. I would definitely have to say, I mean, I've had so many experiences. So, and I've caught it on both ends from other black people,
Mm,
which is the one that hurt the most,
yeah.
but also from other races, right? So there was a time when I was at Sears as the operations. I was over, if most people remember Sears, they called it Brand Central. So this is where you were in the housewares and the refrigerators and electronics. They call it Brand Central. So I was coming in as the operations manager. They hadn't had an operations manager in months. So
Wow.
here it is. I'm this young little black girl, and I've got these older men and women because they worked on commission there, right? So they were a lot older. And it was two instances. I had one lady, she was an older black woman, and she looked at me and she told me, she said, I'm old enough to be your mother. I don't work on Sundays. I mean, she just gave me the rundown. And I said, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you're not. Right. So, it was like she just wanted to give me like what her stance was going to be because she wanted to let me know you can't tell me what to do, even though you're my manager, because I'm older than you. And then I had a customer who um didn't like the answer that they were getting. And they was like, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the manager. You're not who I want to talk to. And use some very derogatory language. So they said, I want to speak to the manager. So I said, okay, I'll make sure I go get them. I walked away, walked around the corner, and came back and said, yes, ma'am. How can I help you?
I would have paid money to see their face.
And her, I mean, and I mean, her face just fell to the floor, and then the whole tune changed because I was the manager, and they weren't expecting it to be a black female, right? So, and then on this side, where in supply chain, which is a white male dominated industry,
Yes.
um, I was dealing with a situation where I had to challenge a thought process with another individual who is a white female.
Mhm.
And in challenging the process, all of my data led to that I was correct.
Mhm.
It upset her because she had worked all day and missed a very important calculation, which would have thrown off the entire project, which is very, very important. So I
Mhm.
had to stand up for my team to let them know, I'm sorry, this is incorrect. This is the data that was missed. So therefore, it's going to throw the whole project off, and we're not going to complete it if we don't correct this.
Mhm.
She cried. So therefore, the present leader, who was a black male,
Mhm.
called me a bulldog in a china shop because I challenged a thought process. And because she was upset and felt like she had worked very hard and we should have just done the way she wanted it to be done, even though it was wrong. And that was the one that was the most hurtful because we're already in a space where it's not many of us that
Mhm.
represent us. And it's not that you had to side with me because I was a black person, but the fact that the data was there and it was correct, and you went as far as to go to be that extreme to label me. And it took me years to come from up under that label
Mm.
because it was upper leadership that casted that negative light. And it took a long time for me to work and navigate through all the obstacles that were set after that because of that one incident.
Yeah, that's such an important thing because it is hard, especially as and if you can if you could speak to the black woman who may be listening to this, whether especially the younger black women who may be listening to this, who are just now entering into the leadership space, just the dynamic of having to it's what some people would call code switching
Mhm.
or just this consciousness regarding how one can be perceived in the
Mhm.
sense of giving feedback. So it's like you can do the same things that your counterparts do. You can say the same thing, you can make the same assessment, you can, but it's going to be perceived differently
Mhm.
simply because you are a black woman. So how would you encourage a younger black woman who may be encountering this for the first time as to how to navigate that space? How do you dial back? Like, what do you do? How do you navigate that perception?
I think one of the first things you have to do is to assess within yourself, is it worth all of the energy?
Mm.
Because it takes a lot of energy to do it. Because quite naturally, depending upon what space you're in, you code switch to survive.
Mm.
Okay. You code switch to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I am one for be who you are. There's a place for everything. You should not change who you are. You should be able to come to work as your best self in the fullness of who you are, because when you don't, you find yourself fighting against the nature of who you are. And that's a whole nother battle, right? So you first have to understand, is it really worth it for what it is that you're trying to obtain, and what is your why? Okay.
Mm.
So you need to first start with that. Then number two, you need to read the people and know who you're dealing with, because the best asset you can have is discernment,
Mm.
to know who is sitting at the table with you, and to know those around you to play, I'm going to use the term, the corporate political game, because it is one.
Yeah.
Okay. You have a lot of systems that are in place in corporate America, to be
Right.
quite honest. So not only is it just corporate as a whole, but within whatever space you're in, they have systems set up.
Right.
And you have to be very discerning and know who is who, where's where, and really position yourself as the queen on the chessboard to know how to move and how to navigate and what conversations to have with who and when and how to show up in spaces, because most people don't realize at every level there's a round table discussion about leadership.
Yeah.
You're always being assessed, and you have to know how to position yourself that when you're not in the room, who's going to speak for you in the room in order for you to get where you have to go. That's the first thing I learned. They always have some type of assessment and some type of conversation. They call it talent review or what have you. But they're looking at the people who's going to be next to move, and you know how to position yourself in the right way. So there are a lot of people whose agenda is just to catch a title.
Yeah.
Because as a leader, you're considered to be a change agent, right? But there's some people who don't want change. They just want to be in charge. They don't want change.
Oh my. So,
So there are
oh
people
my.
who are holding seats in places that really don't belong there, but they were
Hmm.
put there by a friend, and they were put there by somebody who likes them, but they really didn't qualify for the position, but they have the title and the money,
Yeah.
right? So we find ourselves in places where we have to do, and if we talked about code switching, we also have the term black tax, where you have to put in double, triple the work just to be seen on the same playing field, right? You dot your I, I got to dot mine twice. You cross your T, I got to cross my T 3 times and do spell check. You got to do all the things so that you can be seen as, in their eyes, worthy. But as a spirit led leader and as a believer, you have to make sure you understand God is the source and the job is the resource. When you get that confused, you find yourself spinning your wheels in places that you shouldn't. But when you
Yes.
really understand that I am here because God assigned me here, I am here because of the giftings that God put in me, He will lead you over every hurdle and every obstacle, because we got to also understand we're working with unbelievers.
Right.
We're saints in Caesar's house,
Right.
oftentimes. And we have to make sure we lean on the Holy Spirit in order for us to navigate, even through the code switching, even through the microaggressions, even through all those different things that happen in corporate America. We have to lean on the Holy Spirit to guide us through all of those places.
Yes. And it's so important. I know there's some women watching this who just feel seen. They probably in their car yelling. They probably they probably yelling at the TV like this is so, because it is. There is this. I remember this scene in on Scandal where Papa Pope is talking to Olivia and he's just like, you gotta work twice as hard. You gotta do all of these different things. And that can be so exhausting for so many people. I'm glad you made this pivot because we were getting ready to go there as a woman of faith, because that's the way that many of us first came to encounter you, first came to meet you. How has your faith over the course of both journeys, your faith journey and your leadership journey, how
Mhm.
does your faith inform your leadership? Because we see some people who profess to be Christians, profess to be people of faith, and they're terrible leaders. And then we see some people who don't know Jesus from Peter Pan, and they're great leaders. So for you, what's that journey of faith and leadership been like? And then as a follow-up, what role do you see our faith playing in that corporate sector?
Well, let me start with the last question. Um, the role that it has to play, it has to be at this very, very center. Now, that doesn't mean I run around with um, speaking in tongues all day and screaming Jesus joy and all that kind of stuff. But then there's some days I do, because there's some demons in there. Okay, let's just be honest. Um, but I have a prayer closet in every part of the building. That's always been. And there are a lot of people who still call me to this day from previous jobs because I took the time to pray with them privately because they had a situation. Because I'm a leader, I lead from the place of compassion first. I'm a people leader, right? So there was a time I felt that I needed to hide my faith, but then I was quickly convicted that it was God who got me there. So why should I hide that? And He needs to be everywhere. So when I really understood that my assignment was to carry Him into the corporate spaces, then that was a non-negotiable. Like, this is who I am, because you can be an atheist and be okay. You can be whatever you are and be okay. I am a born again believer, and this is who I am. Especially when you're in a place that talks about diversity and equity and inclusion and all these things. This is who I am, and whether you want to talk about it, take it off the table, this is still who I am, and this is at the forefront of my life. So it's very important, even in how I lead my teams, because I tell them all the time, when you do the job with character and integrity, you will always rise to the top. Period. And no matter what other people do, don't follow them up, because the minute you step out of bounds, you're going to be the one that gets caught. And I have had to live that out with some of my leaders in the decisions that they've made, and which were unfortunate for them. But you have to keep it at the forefront. And there have been instances where I knew that upper leadership, I'm going to use the quote, was trying to work me out.
Mm-hmm.
And I stood flat footed and told them, I said, look, God gave me this job. And until He releases me, I'm going to be here. Period. I stood on it. The Holy Spirit told me to say it, and I said it. And I watched Him leave the job
Mm.
because my assignment wasn't up. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a place for the boldness,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to be led. There's a place for the boldness. But I pray for my teams. I pray before, as I'm in work, walking around the building quietly, privately, um, because that's who I am and what He's called me to do. But I also lead with the character and integrity of what Christ has called me to be as a believer and as a witness.
Mm-hmm.
Because you never know how many people are watching you. Because there are people who know that I'm an elder, and I didn't even know that they knew I was an elder. Oh, I saw you on so and so. I said, oh, okay. So your witness is always out there.
Yes.
And you want to make sure you don't kill your witness, because you don't know how many people are watching you. And because I am a discerner, there are people I pull and say, come here, you moving different today. What's going on? So that's an immediate situation where God has called me to, for people who may be dealing with personal things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, some other things I can't share, but some very, very serious situations, right, that I have had to be a part of because God placed me in that space for that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And sometimes we don't even realize why God is doing some of the things that He does in terms of placement. And then we encounter certain situations, and and there are times where it's like, I don't know how this would be handled if I weren't the one handling it. I don't
Correct.
know how this would be handled if this person were on somebody else's team. So absolutely 100%. So as we prepare to land this plane a little bit, if you could sit across from young Errica, so just getting started, what would you say to her to prepare her
Mhm.
for the journey ahead? So now it's often said that life is lived forward, but it is understood backwards. So at this
Mhm.
stage in your journey, if you were sitting across from your younger self, what would you tell her about what's ahead?
I would tell her that you don't have to prove your worth, you already have it.
So good.
That don't shrink in spaces that God has put you in. You don't have to second guess that you have been invited to the table, right? There is a place for you at the table, right? My cousin, her name is Lisa Medley. I should have put on her shirt today, but it says, I belong on the call, I belong in the room, I belong at the table.
So good.
We do belong in those spaces. Um, I would definitely say emotional intelligence is your greatest asset. And do the work for you, right? As a leader, there are times when the most intimate parts of us can show up in our leadership.
Hmm.
If you're constantly working on yourself, then two things: you're not bleeding over people when something personal is happening, and I've heard this term and I've kept it with me. If you need, you can't lead, which
Mm,
means that if you need people to like you, it's going to be hard for you to lead people.
yes.
One of the greatest books I have read was the courage to be disliked.
Yes. Yes.
Everybody
Yes.
doesn't like every decision you make as a leader, but if you need validation from people, it's going to be hard to lead. You have to be secure in who you are as a leader, in your personality, how God has made you, but also be humble enough to be open to feedback and ask for feedback because you're always wanting to grow and to be better as a leader because you're serving people.
Yes. So important, so necessary. So before we wrap up, we want to do a quick plug. So there may be some people listening to this. Of course, it's Women's Month at Kingdom South, and so we wanted to be strategic about the conversation that we had during Women's Month on this podcast. So there may be some ladies who are in the beginning stages of their career. So they're trying to navigate, they're trying to discern, they're just now entering into some of these spaces. There may be some ladies who are kind of mid career, they're sensing the need for a shift, a change. Like, I just don't, what I've been doing is just not working. I feel stuck. And then there's some ladies who maybe on the tail end of their career and they're getting ready to make maybe some life adjustments. It's like, hey, I'm getting ready to retire. And, I don't know what the latter half of my life is going to look like. So, in addition to being an operations leader, in addition to being a faith leader, you are also a coach. You made mention of emotional intelligence. And so, talk to us just a little bit about your coaching practice, what that entails, what you do specifically for women. And we're gonna put this up so there you have the information's on your website. So, Coach Errica, it's on the screen, y'all. Y'all can see it because I can't see it on my. I see the first part. I can't see the rest of it, but
Yes,
you
Coach
guys can see it.
ErricaWBishop.com.
Okay,
Um,
there it is.
so I when you think about when people say who's your avatar, I'm my avatar, right? I lead high achieving women in spaces to help them to navigate and to heal in places where they may have experienced trauma so they can lead in a place of abundance, but also lead in a place out of their wealth of the vessel of who they are, right? Because women carry a lot. So when we're in these spaces, and there's one thing I kind of wanted to go back to that you said about an unhurried, Jesus lived an unhurried life. There's a beautiful lady that I met. Her name is Dr. Vicky, and she talks about how you live an unoffended life.
Mm,
And as a leader, you have to learn how to not be offended.
yes,
And that's what I help people to do, to dig deep into who they are, to remove the offense, the unforgiveness, and the things that could be overshadowing their leadership as an individual, because your leadership also sometimes correlates with some of your personal relationships as well.
yes,
So that's my mission and vision for those to live a life free of the hurt, the pain, the unforgiveness, and to truly lead in a place of wealth through using the principles of emotional intelligence.
That is so important. And listen to me, guys. Listen to me, guys. if you are a if you're a woman in leadership, please hear me. Please hear me when I say this, guys. I am in the people business. I'm not good at a lot of things. There you want to know my faults, I'll tell you at lunch. But I am in the people business. People is what I do. There is no such thing as compartmentalization. What's going on with you emotionally affects what is going on with you in your leadership. I know there are people who like, oh, you gotta leave that stuff at the door, and we say it's cliche. I understand what people are trying to say. They're trying to say don't allow the things that are going on outside to affect what you have going on in other spaces. But the realization is how you are emotionally is how you are,
Mhm.
and it is going to affect your leadership. So if you're looking for someone who can help you to navigate those waters, who has experience in both spaces. So we're talking experience and training in emotional intelligence and experience and training navigating the corporate space. Listen to me, guys. It's something that you need to take advantage of. More people invest in what they put on them than what they put in them. There are a lot
Okay.
of people who look nice going to work to do nothing. They look nice going to work to be nothing. And it's like, if you're serious about taking your leadership to the next level, I'm telling you, even if you don't see the connection between your leadership and emotional intelligence, it's there. It's showing up, it's happening. And I believe Errica will be an incredible coach for you to tap into. So the website is there. Go there, coachericawbishop.com, and click the links, peruse through the site, see what she can offer you, reach out, get a call on the books, and let her listen to what you have going on so that you guys can see whether or not it is a good fit. In addition to that, you've created something called the hidden tax of leadership. So talk to us a little bit about what that is. And of course, the information is there on the screen where people can go. erricabishop.info/leadership. They can go there and take this assessment. So what's this assessment about? Why is it necessary that people take this assessment, process the results, and apply it to their lives?
Well, this assessment came about because I'm actually in the middle of writing a book called The Hidden Cost of Leadership, right? But the hidden tax of leadership is an assessment about leaders who are carrying more than what they're supposed to.
Mm,
And we find ourselves in a place of burnout. And to your point, what you were speaking earlier, we feel as though we have to carry all these different things and we're trying to mask it and we're overwhelmed. We don't have the capacity, and we talked about margin, have the capacity to carry a lot of the loads that we should be carrying because go back to Sunday, y'all. Y'all got to come to church. It was so good. We've got to know what to delegate and what to get rid of and what to delete and what do we really need to carry. And I immediately thought about that from the sermon on Sunday because oftentimes we feel as though, and as women, we wear so many different hats and we feel as though we have to carry everything and have our hands in everything, but some things are not ours. And this is even on a personal standpoint, even in relationships. There are some things we're carrying, emotionally carrying in relationships that don't belong to us.
yes.
And we're having this emotional toll even with leadership, personal relationships, family, and we're carrying all these different things. So all of that to say that the assessment shows where are you and how much are you holding
Mm.
that very well might not be yours that you need to offload so that you don't crash out from burning out so that you can truly flourish in the place that you need to be in.
So good. So good. Again, I want you to take advantage of these resources. If you would like to work with Errica as a coach, you can go to coachericawbishop.com. And if you would like to take this assessment so that you can get a gauge for What are some things that I may be holding on to, that I may be carrying, that are not mine to carry, and then beginning the process to offload? I think the assessment is going to be a great way to get into the ecosystem, because here's what happens. Sometimes people will take assessments and then they'll try to put the results of the assessment into practice on their own. It's like that don't work. Just because the assessment told you what's wrong, you still need somebody's help to navigate what it looks like to fix it. So I think you'd be a great option for that. So as we prepare to land, this has been a great conversation. I want to thank you for adding value. As we wrap up, this is called Unhurried. So we're exploring what it means to unhurry our lives and embrace the pace of Jesus. So in your current season of life and leadership, what does unhurried look like for you?
Unhurried doesn't mean that I'm not productive, but it does mean that I'm aligned.
Mm,
It means that I'm walking in the pace that God has given me to walk in so that I don't outrun what it is where I think I need to be. I'm truly operating on kingdom time, not
mhm.
mine. And it took me a long time to get to that place, but to truly understand that my time is truly in his hands and to walk in that space with intention, walk in that space with clarity, walk in that space with peace, and to know that I am on the timing of God and to prioritize and be present in the space that I'm in and not think so far down the road that I'm missing the moment that I'm in and to truly be aligned. And that's in every area of my life.
That's so good. So good. Listen, I want to thank you so much. One, for being the first guest on Unhurried, this new podcast series. And I want to thank you for adding value. There's so many of us know you as a faith leader and the contributions that you make to the faith community that we're absolutely grateful for. But I'm grateful that we got a chance to hear and to see a different side of you this morning in terms of leadership. And so thank you for putting in the work. One of the things one of my mentors always says is those who are mentors and coaches, they give us speed. They help us to get further faster. We're able to learn the lessons that it took them years, decades to learn in minutes. And so you have given us so much wisdom in this time that we know it took you longer than the time you've given it to us to get it. And so we're so grateful that you were willing to learn the lessons and that you've been willing to share those lessons with us so freely. So if you're still watching us live, air claps everybody for Errica and the value that she's added this morning. I want you to do us a favor. On this platform, I've only got one ask. I don't do no offering pools. I don't do none of that. I have one ask. If this helped you, would you help me help more people? Just send it to somebody that you know who needs it. Somebody who wasn't here this morning, somebody who don't even know this exists, and you got some value from it as you were listening to it and applying it to your own life. You were also thinking of others who this could benefit. And so I want you to send this to them. All right. Final words, and we out of here.
Um, I would definitely have to say is when you are aligned, you don't have to chase anything. It's already assigned to you. You don't have to chase it. So when you think about being unhurried, get alignment, get clarity, position yourself where you need to be, and you will attract everything that you need, and you will be able to enjoy it in the process.
So good. So good. So good. All right, guys. I hope you have an incredible rest of your day. We're here every first Wednesday. Every first Wednesday morning. We're adding a little length to these conversations because we want to extract as much value as we can from them. So we're super grateful. This is going to be up. It's on wax, so you can go back and refer to it whenever you need to. Again, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I want to say just a quick prayer for everybody, people who are watching live, people who may come across this as a replay. Father, we thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for this opportunity. We know that the earth is the Lord. So even when we're not talking about things that people consider to be faith-based, we know you are in it. And so thank you for the gift of leadership. Thank you for those who you've gifted with the gift of leadership. Thank you for the opportunity that you've allowed us to share on this platform. I pray for every person who will encounter this video in any way, shape, or form. Blessings to them, blessings on their work, blessings on their leadership. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Again, thank you for joining us live. Send this
Thank
to somebody
you.
you know that needs this. And we will see you next month right here on Unhurried, where we explore what it means to unhurry our lives and embrace the pace of Jesus. Until next time, take care.